So we'll pick up here and we'll talk about surveillance. Why do we do surveillance? In a workers' comp case, like I said, it's to get the subject back to work, determining that individual if they're violating work policies. I was talking, that's the undercover surveillance. Document true levels of activity. If that individual is, hey, put my need, whatever the case may be, you're that third party, you go out and document to close that individual's claim and for settlement purposes. A lot of times these cases are being settled, and they may call you and hire us to go out and conduct surveillance prior to the settlement so they can have some sort of ammunition or, some sort of leverage. And you have surveillance techniques. You have the stakeout, you have the physical surveillance, you have the electronic surveillance, as we kind of talked about that, audio recordings, video recordings. A lot of times they do what they call unmanned surveillance. Companies will contract with other companies and you'll put a camera out there. For me, if you put it out there in a rural area, depending on who that subject is, they're probably going to mess with it because they're familiar with the area. So if they're coming out down the road and it's something that looks unusual,
out of place,
yeah, they'll come in. And we've had situations, I know in this industry where people have gone out and taken that camera.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, going out and actually, taking that camera, taking it down, Now, the flip side with that, when they first started doing what they call, unmanned surveillance, a lot of investigators were kind of up in arms about it. I was probably, because they looked at it, it's like a robot to them, like, oh, this is going to put us out of work. But
you got to still control it.
Still got to control it. You still have to go out and set up the camera. And then you have to retrieve it a lot of times, because you can't leave it out there forever. But the most important thing, and this is something that I say to clients all the time, is, so what happens when he leaves? You set a camera up at his house, and give you an example. Set a camera up at his house, guy comes out, and it's good if you do a day or two to get an understanding of their patterns, as you said before. But you can't use it for your whole case.
Right.
So you go out, set the unmanned camera up. He comes out of his house, gets in his car, gets in his truck, drives off. Now he comes back. And on the back of that pickup, we'll just say 200 bricks on the back of that pickup, hypothetically. Pulls in his driveway. And I've seen this happen. It wasn't bricks, it was actually wooden planks. Walks in the house, comes out with his teenage son and his friend, and all you can see on the video is him pointing to that truck. And he goes back in the house, and they unload everything from off that truck. You missed the video of what happened when he went to load. You don't know if he put it up there. That's why I say with the unmanned, it's great. You can get a lot of what's going on at the house, but that's if he's doing things at the house, working on cars, things like that. Because when he leaves, same thing, I've seen it with wives. They leave out, come back, pop open the minivan, 300 bags of groceries. Goes in the house. 5 kids come out, all different ages. Points to the house. It goes right back in the house. It goes right back in the house. So you missed a lot of opportunities. We talked about the drone. We also do social media monitoring, where we will monitor your social media, especially when it's open, to see what else you got going on, see what other activities are going on, see what additional information we can get, kind of help us out in cases where we haven't been getting anything in terms of surveillance on the case, because you do have those situations. A lot of times attorneys are coaching of these subjects. A lot of times, I worked a case years ago. This is like back in the 80s or 90s, where everybody, and it still happens, in the family had a claim. And the mother would drive over to this daughter's house, and her and the daughter would walk up and down the street pushing the stroller. And I would videotape. And I swear to God, it happened every day. You know what I'm saying? Like every day, it was either every day or every other day. And she was actually, kind of working her through the claim. Like, hey, make sure you do this. Because they probably ran into, situations where they were exposed. Somebody provided the video, because you can have that happen. The adjuster makes a comment, kind of like in the domestics, to the subject. Now he's alerted, so where they coach them up, and where plaintiff's attorneys are coaching them up. Typically, like I said, in our industry, it's 6-2. But, and I've been saying this since the 90s, you got to go off of the age of that individual, who that individual is, and whatever you can learn about them. That was before social media. Yeah. If you got a claimant that's 21, 22 years old, and the client's like, yeah, let's start at 6. I'm thinking, for what?
Right.
They're not
moving. Yeah.
And you probably need to get you one of those accounts, video game account or something.
Yeah.
Those are the things they're doing.
And you'll have clients who will have stipulations and requirements to break off at the 4-hour mark. No activity. You come back another day. So you start at 6, you break it at 10. Right. That guy's still not up. 11 o'clock is breakfast.
Right.
And you've left. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So these plaintiff's attorneys, when you're going to testify, when we talk about the courtroom, they're seeing the reports. They're seeing the video. So when they're talking to that claimant or that subject, they're telling them, or, whoever that individual, liability, FMLA, hey, these are the hours. So you might want to stay home till about 4 before you go outside. So, and the beauty of it is doing more than one day. You get some adjusters, give you 1 day, it's not much you can accomplish that. Yeah. 3 is pretty good, 5 is great. Because then it gives you a level of variance.
Yeah, so variance show up.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that when it comes time to testify, why that variance is so important. And of course, covert and open sources. Covert can be multiple different things. It can also be a canvas. When you're talking to the neighbors, trying to get an understanding of that particular individual, comings and goings. Now, when we do surveillance, before we go out on the case, there's a lot of things that we do. Because we're talking about surveillance, you want to think about your surveillance setup. So back when we were doing surveillance, I say we, I've been doing it a while, I would literally get in my car. Let's say I drive to Milan, Tennessee. I get off the exit at Milan, Tennessee. My exit of choice would probably be Cracker Barrel. I go to Cracker Barrel and buy a map. Open that map up, lay it out in my car, and figure out how to get to your street. Nowadays, you can put the address in, GPS is going to take you right to the door. So I say that because there's so many different tools. We use a case management system that allows us to utilize a lot of information. So once we get the case, we put it in the system. We start the prelim on the back end in terms of case preparation. But that system also tells us who is the closest investigator to that case. Gotcha. How far that case is to that individual, how many miles. Now, it can be one or two things depending on what it is. If we get a case, we may decide to go to the next investigator because it's a good possibility that individual may know that person. We've had cases come in, hadn't happened a lot, but we've had 1 or 2 cases. Investigator lives on the same street as the subject. So we're not going to reach out to that investigator and say, let's go. We're going to have to travel somebody a little bit further out. There's a good possibility, they may know each other. And a lot of times with social media, when we're doing social media, and I see it sometimes when I'm looking at people's social media, mutual friends. Sometimes it's mind blowing. You say, God, we got 13 friends again. Yeah, I've never seen this guy. And 2 or 3 of his friends may be very good friends of mine. Well, I've been by the house for parties and games, and I was like, I've never seen this guy. So it'll tell us how close the case is. It'll tell us exactly where it sits, and then it'll tell us, okay, so here is the active street that's coming through there. It'll also tell us the businesses in that area. One of the biggest things, especially when you go mobile on a case is, and you lose them, where do I want to check? This is also good when you have a situation where you set up in a neighborhood and you can't sit in that neighborhood. really a big advocate of allowing that person to come to you. When I talk about it happening naturally, work your egress. So you go into subdivision, you figure out, okay, well, maybe it's 2 ways out of the subdivision, but everybody's going this way. So today I'm setting up on this one. And I can't sit in the subdivision, but there's an Exxon gas station as this subdivision opens out to the road. I'm going to sit at this Exxon gas station because we've done our preliminary background. So we know what vehicles are registered to you, who drives what. A lot of times the vehicles line up based on the subject. You got 2 Dodge Ram pickup trucks and a minivan. Every now and then, it may go against the grain, but that woman's going to be driving that minivan. You know what I'm saying? I've seen once or twice, you say, oh my gosh. And it's not that the man's driving the minivan, it's hers too, but she's also predominantly driving that pickup, right? So we know the vehicles. The system also, will give you a look at the address. So a lot of times we'll get, cases in and we'll have a certain address, and it may be a PO box, maybe a UPS store, maybe, so these are all the things that, not only us, but the investigator wants to look at. The investigator can access all of this information, same as we do. So, setup, always key. Google Earth, Google Maps, determine the best location to set up so you can obtain good surveillance video. So I'm going to run a little small clip with a few surveillance tips. So in that video, it started out with, you want to start every day on a full tank of gas. Now it may be different because let's say you work in this case 3 days consecutively and you start out with a full tank of gas on Monday, but the case is 20 minutes from your house. May not be necessary to get a full tank of gas each day. Just ride through that gas as you normally would. However, depending on where your gas is that second day, to determine whether or not you need to fill up. But you always want to at least be over half tank of gas. I have seen investigators not be mindful of the gas situation and literally have to break off a case. When we talked about the reciprocity and the multiple licenses, prime example. That person get in their car and decide, go on to Murder Beach today. Keep in mind, sometimes these people aren't working. You know what I'm saying? So they've got nothing else to do. Kids may be gone for the summer or, everybody's, I'm going to go for a ride. I'll never forget I had a situation, I think it was early on in my situation. Somebody actually contacted us looking for an investigator. And I don't know if it had something to do with, whatever it may happen to do. But I thought it was interesting for the mere fact that, like most people, I could be anywhere on any given day. I can say, tomorrow I'm going to Birmingham. So if you're not prepared, you're on that full tank of gas, you have to break off that class. Yeah. Or if you're working the case and let's just say it's day 2 and that subject goes to the gas station, I recommend you start to get gas too. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you can pull over to another pump, depending on how skilled and savvy you are in that particular situation. You could be getting video or you're getting gas, and then, hey, because 9 times out of 10, they're filling up.
They're headed somewhere.
They're headed somewhere else. Yeah. So, mobile surveillance. That's mostly what investigators will be doing. It's mobile surveillance. We talked about the GPS. We talked about, the setup, all the things that you have, the smartphones in terms of having information accessible, tablets, laptops, all of those things. It's a very powerful tool, the mobile surveillance, because that way you help to, your video should paint a picture. You know what I'm saying? So if your report says, you know, hey, I arrived there at 6, or your update, you know, before we start talking about reports, arrived at 6, claim came out at 8, pulled the trash can in, you know, or wheeled the trash can down, went back in, the kids got in the car, they got in the car, backed out the driveway. You want to be able to document that with video as it's actually happening, if it's possible. There's no need in getting compromised and blowing your case, so to speak, having to be overzealous, you know what I'm saying, when you can just kind of let it happen naturally. But if there's opportunities, depending on your setup, then you want to be able to, you know, get that video. Yeah. So one of the biggest things that are happening in mobile surveillance is you could actually lose the individual. It's a very good possibility that you can. You get a lot of people who will complain about that. You get a lot of people give you, you know, we refer to it in the industry as a Monday morning quarterback. And everybody's got I don't know how you lost them. You know, typically, I remember early on, we did a lot of cases for this one insurance company. And some of their guys, their main guy was a former FBI guy. And he was a Monday morning quarterback to everything. And I remember having to tell another guy, I said, you do realize when they do it, there's multiple cops. It's only you. You know what I'm saying? So in some situations, when you work in the case and you losing a guy, and that's when you say you need 3 days of surveillance, 3 seconds. Each time, like if you keep losing that guy at the same spot, that's really sometimes it's on you. Yeah. Because each day that you work him, you should be getting closer to where he's going. Because day 2, you know, when he comes back out the driveway, makes that left on get well, that right on shit, like, well, this is let me speed up and stay with him because this is where I lost him the last time. You know, so it should help you to get, you know, to where you need to be in that regard. Sometimes you may have to include another investigator. And in that situation, we will kind of tag team. They'll follow him for a little while. He may turn off, then that investigator pick up. He may go over a block, then come back, pick him up. You know, and that allows that ability for, you know, you sometimes to keep up with people that may be difficult to keep up with. Some people drive erratic. You know, sometimes just by nature, you know, sometimes you have a situation where you think that you're burned, so to speak, but it's just that individual missed their exit and it's coming up. So he just shot over 3 lanes of traffic to get off. And you're like, dang. But he just realized that's his exit. Right. Now, are you going to shoot over 3 lanes of traffic? Probably not. Probably not. You know, so that's the situation. That's what I mean when I say a Monday morning quarterback. There are situations that sometimes are beyond your control. You know, you just want to make sure, say, hey, well, let me make sure that I stay close proximity with this vehicle as we're coming to this section because I lost it the last time. You know, there are other situations. Georgia would be a great one. HOV lane. That subject just left an appointment riding with his wife. That subject just left from picking his daughter or son up to school, riding with the child in the car. He can get in that HOV lane. It might just be you. You know, people say, oh, you should have a blow-up W or something like that in the car. Not necessary. Not necessary. You know, and then sometimes with that, you know, you have to take into consideration, so what does, you know, well, what's most important? I'm going to get in this lane right now and get this $250 ticket that I'm going to be responsible for that, you know, or do I continue to work this lane, keep up with me to the best of my ability? That's why it's good to know appointments. That's why it's good to know what extra information you may know, social media. So you say, okay, well, now you're thinking outside the box. Okay, we're headed this way. Okay, great. They own a restaurant. That's probably where he's going. So zoom, he's in that lane. I'm gonna check there first. You know, is this in the direction of home? You know, a lot of times when people leave, especially if you're not familiar with the area, I just GPS put their home address in and see if we actually headed home. You know, so we're going opposite direction. You know, so with that mobile surveillance, it can be difficult. It's not an easy thing to do, but it takes practice. It takes time. You know, and it takes a certain level of skill. You know, I had an investigator that he had 5 different claimants and he lost them all. So I called him in the office And I was talking to him, and he was a young guy. And I said, well, George, I'm not going to use his real name. I said, George, I said, so what do you think it is? You know what I'm saying? Because you lost everybody. You lost everybody for the last 2 weeks. And he said, so it's even. So I just, out on the table, I had 5 folders. And I had him open the 5 folders. And I said, George, just write down a little bit something about everybody in that folder. Wrote down a little bit something about everybody in the folder. And I moved the folders out the way. It's like a little post-it note. I said, so George, tell me what those people had in common. They had nothing in common. Only thing was, they all lived in a particular city. I said, here's a 58-year-old woman, here's a 21-year-old man, here's a 30-year-old man, here's a 40-year-old man. All different nationalities, all different vehicles. I said, George, at the end of the day, it's you. You know what I'm saying? So you need to work on this skill. So that's one of the things you want to look at. But it's definitely, like I said, it's not an easy job. And I wasn't trying to be difficult with him, but I was trying to get him to understand, each one of these people drive different. One of the biggest things that you deal with sometimes, which is crazy to me, is people who drive slow. A slow driver person is the worst to me when it comes to civilians because you're trying to stay with them.
Right.
And it's slowing down. And the speed limit is 45, he's doing 35. Now you doing 34. But everything you're doing is mirroring what he's doing, which is only going to alert
more
him.
attention. Right.
So in some situations, you got to go ahead and drive ahead. Mm-hmm. Drive ahead, look in your rear view mirror, as long as you can see them in your rear view mirror. Also, like I said about the directions, are we headed home?
Right.
Because see, I can drive ahead to a gas station up there and wait for you to pass me. Give you about 5 or 10 minutes and I come out again. And now I'm back behind you. But a slow driving person is difficult also in mobile surveillance if you're working a case with an appointment. That individual may live 35, 40 minutes from that appointment. And if he's in a small town, let's say Columbia, Tennessee, it may be a 2-lane road to that appointment. Yeah, I may be the only 2 people on that road. You've been riding behind him for 50 miles almost. For 50 miles. So you have to give him some distance. But a lot of times what I tell investigators in that situation is, where he's going. So I may leave and just go to the appointment and wait for him. It may take a little while for you to come, but I know where you should be going. Right. Do you run the risk of the possibility of that person not coming to the appointment? Yeah. But you also run the risk of being compromised on a case that you're only on the first day, that you got to work 2 more days. So sometimes you got to take you got to outweigh, that's what I'm saying, thinking out the box and making a decision. Say, well, am I going to, continue down this road or just go ahead and get to that location? Also in mobile surveillance, when you do lose people, you want to canvass the local area. You want to canvass for about 30 minutes. All the local restaurants, all the local stores. We laugh about this, and I laugh every time I have to tell somebody. 70% of the time, you lose somebody, they at Walmart. They're at Walmart. Like you can canvas and you'll pull into a Walmart and they're there. The other part with the mobile surveillance and why it's so important to, be aware of the license plates is, it's just like purchasing a car. You ever purchased a car, you said, hey, I bought me a Dodge Ram. And now you're driving a Ram and all you see is Ram. You know what I'm saying? So, you can, I've seen situations you get out there and you follow a white Chevy about. All of a sudden, it's 6 white Chevy Impals all over the interstate. And you're like, which one is that? Which one is it? Yeah. So that's where you want to pay attention to those licenses. Other thing you have to take into consideration is the weather condition. Rain, snow, the condition of your vehicle. Not only do you want it on full, but do you need an oil change? What's the condition of your tires? Because at the end of the day, you have to take consideration your safety too. You know what I'm saying? There is no case that is more valuable than your life and your safety. That's just my personal opinion. You know what I'm saying? If you lose somebody, at least you have another day to go out and follow that individual again. You know, you can change cars, you know, you can put another investigator on it. There are plenty of things that you can do. You know, you got, like we just had recently with the icy roads and the snow. We had to shut down a lot of cases, you know, because it would be hard to get, you know, if it was hard to get in our subdivision, it's hard to get in that subdivision, you know, and they're not coming out, you know. So maybe up north, you know, the people may say, well, hey, we can get them shoveling the snow or something like that. But when you're familiar with the area, you're familiar how people move, how valuable is that going to be? You know, him shoveling snow may not be what gets his claim shut down or, you know, does that solve that particular situation. That's why we typically want to know what the injury is, so we know what to focus on. You want to videotape everything as you can in a wide pan, you know, but, you know, what is his injury? So in mobile surveillance, like I said, with tailing someone, you want to, you know, prioritize safety. You want to maintain a discreet presence. I typically try to have a car in between me and the subject. I may get in another lane. If that individual is driving, I try to stay out of that driver's side mirror. Because any moves they're making, what they're looking at, they're constantly looking in that driver's side mirror, and it goes back to what I said about shirt. You know, I got on a Michigan shirt, you know.
Keep seeing the same guy, the same car and shirt.
Yeah, same car and shirt. So you want to keep a good distance between you. I like to utilize other cars. So I may be one sometimes to let cars in. But also if I'm coming up on an intersection or an exit, I make sure I close that gap on that particular car because he may be deciding to get off. He may decide to go left or right. And you may have people who will abruptly turn left or right. My recommendation is you proceed to the next light, make your right and come back. And try to pick them up at that street they turn on versus making that same abrupt right. Because if you're not paying attention, you can end up in an accident. If you jump over and you cut another car, now they're blowing their horn, which draws more attention to you. So you want to try to make it work as smooth as possible. That's why the mobile surveillance is sometimes can be, you know, very difficult. And it takes, you know, practice. One of the most known facts is 3 rights. If you follow somebody and they make 3 rights, good possibility that they are aware that you're following or trying to determine if you follow. Because 3 rights put you right back where you started, the circle. So if they make a right and another right and another right, and keep in mind, you just came down that road. Right. So they get to the light and you're coming back to the same area. So that goes with, like I said, attorneys, you know, trying to educate them more to be more mindful of their whereabouts. I will tell you in my history, women are probably the easiest people to follow. Men seem to be, you know, I don't know if they've got something else going on, but they're kind of looking a lot more. And if you've got 2 women in the car, it's even better. But they're having a whole conversation. They're having a whole conversation. You can say
You're not looking at that rear mirror.
Side mirrors, yeah. So, and like I said, you want to stay out of that side mirror, that rear view mirror.
And that's from distance, I guess.
Yeah, from the distance. And like I said, when you're approaching lights and ramps and train tracks, stuff like that, you want to kind of close that gap. You know what I'm saying? You really don't want more than a car between you and the other car. If you can get it in there. You know, another car in there. I just don't like to follow, be the only car behind them. I like to kind of, mix it up and give it some variation. Now, filming during surveillance, there's dash cams that you can purchase. Some clients want dash cam video, some not so much. They're more focused on, what that individual is doing, once they're outside their car. You do have individuals who say they can't drive or they can't sit for extended periods of time. So those clients sometimes do want driving video. I recommend you do it in dash cam. Dash cams are, fairly inexpensive, $20, $30, and you can record video that way while you're driving. Some investigators been doing a while, might pick that camera up, get a little video, because a lot of that helps to tell your story. You know what I'm saying? As they look at your video, they look at your update and then they refer back to your video.
Nah, go ahead. I got questions in my head, but they're irrelevant.
So, but yeah, the dash cam, and you want to get steady, good, clear video. A lot of these cameras now have that, they'll take the shakiness out. I mean, you can have, there are, I showed you all the camera I was holding in my hand, but there are little handles that you can add to it. It'll kind of help you hold it as well. Shoot it this way or that way or that way. Kind of keep it from moving. There's monopods that you can use. There are mounts, little joy mounts in the car that you can use to keep that camera from moving around, so much in terms of shooting video. Here's a couple of good, video, ID shots, to be able to determine who that individual is. You got this guy was actually, this case was pretty interesting because he was doing landscaping. This is actually a case, I worked that case. He was doing landscaping at gas station. So literally, I was on the other side of the interstate. He was going east. I was on west. I just got off right before the ramp, sat in my car, and just videotaped while he was cutting grass all the time. You know what I'm saying? It turned out to be, pretty easy, but it was a lot of his businesses were gas stations, and they were right at the exit on the opposite side.
When you have a case and it's say 3 days and there you're on that day, that particular one, curiosity. So would you have filmed him until he puts the lawnmower up? If it takes him 2 hours, do you film the whole 2 hours?
Well, and that
to show the story, or
to show the story, you want to get as much video as you can. Sometimes that decision will come up to your area manager or your operations manager. They may say, well, hey, how long is he going to be over there? Well, let's break off for a minute and then come back. Okay. Or let's maybe change our angle. A lot of times when you're filming people, and this was a different situation, you want to utilize your vehicle. A lot, times people will come in, it's a cul-de-sac, and they're like, well, when I come in, the house is right there. I can't get my time shot of the house. And I tell guys, loop around. Now use that side mirror on either side, or that rear view mirror. Just focus your camera in on that, and you'll still be able to get that shot. So you want to utilize it as many ways as possible. With him, I stayed with him the whole time. Because you also run the situation of, it can be a long day, which is going to go into the next day's budget anyway. But you never know if that opportunity is going to present itself. So you say, okay, worst case scenario, because, I was the person that was managing the case. Worst case scenario, okay, I draw attention to myself. He sees me. I'm in my Toyota Tundra on the side of the road. Really, he should be working. You shouldn't be concerned about me. I could be on the side of the road with anything going on. Right. You know what I'm saying? I can pop my hood. Right. Of course, that's going to bring the local authorities because I didn't want to think it helps. You've been there for a while. Yeah, because you've been there for a while. But in that particular situation, somebody else can go back out there. Or you can take some days off. Even if it's 3 consecutive days, sometimes you may have to change that schedule. You say, well, we can't do it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We got like 5 hours of video on this guy. We may need to take a couple of days off, send somebody else back out on it. Or push it out a couple of days and then go back. But if that opportunity presents itself, you want to get as much video as possible on that particular individual. Here's a few do's and don'ts in surveillance. So with that, as it went by, it had several do's and don'ts. So the first picture was the guy and his wife inside the house. We talked about that before. Filming inside of a window, it can, it's a little gray, it can go either way. You really want to get them outside, which is one of the do's. You saw the guy outside in the park. While they're outside, they're active. You always want to film them. One of the don'ts that I personally feel is filming children. I've seen it handled several different ways. I mean, I've seen the claimant was on a vacation with his kid, and the way the investigator panned his video, he had the whole family versus focusing, on the claimant per se. And I've seen an attorney say, well, were you filming him or his family? You got his wife here, you got the kids in the picture. He kind of turned it around on the investigator, almost like he was a stalker or a pedophile. Right. He was documenting, and you want to get full body shots when you're thinking about what the injury is. So, then the flip side of that also is you're set up in the neighborhood. A lot of times during, school season, you have kids coming out, to get on the school bus. Here you are in your car, and a neighbor sees you. Right. And you're filming. Right. You're filming the subject who came out to the front door, let his daughter or son out, and they conversing, and the kids are going to get them. That neighbor's, all they see is you holding this camera. Now you kind of school bus. Right. Yeah, so that's what I was talking about with the Mississippi, Tennessee, the credentials. Having the credentials, because that could be escalated 15 different ways. Now you got somebody who want to file a report. You want to make sure you have your credentials. Like, no, it's not what I'm doing. So now there have been cases where the claimant is a child. There may be an accident, and it's saying that the child doesn't go outside and play and things along those lines. So you may have to set up in the neighborhood. It doesn't happen often. We had a case, a young lady was 8, come outside, the level of activity, are they playing outside in the neighborhood with other kids? Those things. So it can be, a little tricky, from that perspective. It also said in there, the don'ts, if they travel to a place that they work at, and it's not open to the public, don't go inside. Just set up outside. Now, seasoned investigator, you're going to pretext to see if that person is working there. You can call the front office. You can say, okay, well, right way trucking. Hey, can I speak to Jerry? Hold on one second. You really want to do the whole name, but hey, can I speak to Jerry? Hold on one second. So, okay, well, he's working. And then at that point, you just kind of post up. So you have clients that'll go two different ways with this. One, they'll say, hey, let's stay with it and see what time he gets off. 9 times out of 10, if he got there at 8, he's not getting off before. See what time, he gets off. But then I've seen situations where that person may be working light duty and the client didn't tell you. So now they're at work, and then they come out at 12 and they leave. Or there are also times that the client didn't tell you that that individual was coming to pick up some paperwork or a check. Clients are going to check you, just like you're checking their subject. And that's one of the things I always tell investigators, I tell managers, whoever the case may be, they're going to check behind you. There used to be, I know a couple of adjusters out in the Chattanooga area, the guy would have an appointment. She may or may not tell you. So here you send an update, because you'll have what they call in this industry ghosting. Here you send an update, said nothing happened all day. She know he went to the appointment. Where was you sitting at? What did you miss? I know another adjuster who would actually drive past the location. Say, hey, I just drove past the street. I don't know if I saw your guy out there. You see,
gotta checks and balances.
Yeah, well, I was looking, or they'll drive past and say, hey, I think I seen your guy in the street. Does he have a green Camaro with tinted windows? I think that's him at the corner. Like, no, that's not him. Then it's, well, what does he drive? And you think yourself, what difference does it make? Wow. Yeah, what difference does it make? We're focused on doing, what needs to be done. So, that's another one. Informing the local authorities. Typically what you do when you arrive to a case is you call dispatch and say, hey, this is so-and-so, I'm a private investigator. I'm working a case in this area. Now, I've been doing this a long time, so I'm always going to encourage you to do that. You know what I'm saying? Because it covers you. You know what I'm saying? Now, if you don't do it, it's not a bad thing, but it covers you. Me, it's kind of a catch-22. And this is just amongst us as the older investigators. So you'll have a situation where you call in, you may have a case. I had a young lady one time that was she was the assignment, and she worked for dispatch for this small town police department. So of course I'm telling the investigator, we don't need to call. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens in that situation, so you're working a case. You want to tell them what area. You don't have to tell them the case. You don't have to tell them the street. You say, hey, I'm working in such and such area. People are going to see you. First person they're going to call is the police. So the police are going to tell them, oh, that's a private investigator. He's working in your neighborhood. Then you wonder how the subject was there. Right. Yeah. Yeah, especially when they have a workers' comp claim. That may actually bring your subject out. They may come out of their house, walk up the street to your car, tap on your window, even though it's tinted and looks like nobody's in there, and engage you in conversation. Say, yeah, well, they said it was an investigator working in this area. I know I got a workers' comp claim. They're going to let you know. And at that point, your case is over. Yeah, your case is over. So I don't say not to do it, but it can be like a catch-22. Right. And I've seen situations where you call in and report it, and then the police officer in the area will come to your location and talk to you. He said, yeah, I heard on the radio, the investigator working. I just figured I'd ride over here, just check, make sure everything's okay.
So now is that a passive-aggressive move on the police part? Like, why would they?
Maybe they're just checking it out.
But the interesting thing about that now is, here you are, here you sit discreetly.
Right, no, police car.
Here's his police car. Yeah. All that does is draw attention. So a lot of times, for us, and this used to happen a lot in the early years, you kind of go, it's not helping my case. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not helping. Like, everybody that's riding past here, turning past this egress, sees me conversing with this police officer. You know what I'm saying? I would rather for it to happen naturally than for me to create it. Right. And that's why I say you want to be aggressive with your setup, but you also want to be smart. But if you're sitting on the egress, so let's say the police officer comes and I'm sitting by my subdivision. You come out to Exxon. I'm okay with him coming up to me at Exxon and we have a conversation and I show him anything going on. Could be anything going on. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Now, if I'm sitting on somebody's street, you know what I'm saying? That's a totally different situation. Because all the neighbors now are looking, they're trying to find out what's going on. And it makes the job harder. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be smart in terms of, how you go about your setup and how you manage that case. Tips when compromise on the case. A police officer approaches you. You want to discontinue that surveillance immediately. Whether the claimant or subject is aware or not. You want to discontinue it immediately and then just notify either the client or your immediate supervisor. This is after you have your conversation with the local authority. You want to document it in terms of what happened, just for your record, just in case you have to repeat this back to your immediate supervisor or to the client. You want to document exactly how it happened. Because if the subject is involved, they're going to escalate. They're going to make it way bigger than what it was. At that point, it's at the client's discretion, but you want to make arrangements to work the case again, probably in a different vehicle. The company will probably put you in a rental car. Or they may assign the case to somebody else. Or they may take a couple of weeks off, assign it to somebody else. Or take a couple of weeks off, put you in the rental.
Question for you. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about being compromised, in your experience, how do you deal with the interactions with the police? And does it vary from state to state?
I will say small towns, Kentucky, and nothing against Kentucky, but I've seen it handled different ways. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes when you're in a small town, guys aren't really difficult. I mean, any interaction with local authorities, whoever it may be, you want to maintain your professionalism. You want to have your credentials. Yeah. You want all your credentials to be, up to par. And you kind of want to leave it to them in terms of how, they choose to handle that situation. But you just want to make sure you're in line with what's going on. Because all you're doing is working a job. You know what I'm saying? You're not doing anything illegal. You're not harassing anybody. You're not stalking them. You know, you're working a job. That individual is somebody who's injured. Could be a very different things. And that employer is trying to get them back to work. They've exercised all their options. They've gone to the doctor. They've done physical therapy. This person just ain't coming back to work. You know what I'm saying? So I can't allow this person to hold us hostage while we continue to pay them. Right. We got to get some eyes out here to see what's going on. You know, and police officers understand that. It's normally, I've never seen it really escalate, you know, to some foolishness, even, you know, on my days or anybody else's days. It's just providing them with the, you know, proper credentials. Sometimes we can go about it a lot of different ways because you kind of, you know, dissolve this, you know, diffuse the situation. They may want to sit there and talk to you about
who knows what.
Yeah, who knows what. They may want to talk to you about, you know, getting into the field. You know what I'm saying? They may want to talk to you about, hey, what's your day like? You know, I'm about to retire. And it's in some situations, and I say Kentucky, people can be very helpful. Okay. You know, police will tell you. They may approach you and say, hey, look, you know, they called us, somebody called us about you in the area. She say, hey, y'all, let's stay in the conversation. He said, well, look, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of methamphetamine is sold up here. This ain't the safest location. You know, you may want to move to this particular location. And at that point, those are things that you need to share with, you know what I'm saying, with your you know, to your operations manager, your area manager, and let them make that decision. At the end of the day, safety is most important. You know what I'm saying? And you know, if you're not familiar with the neighborhood, every neighborhood, you're not gonna know. And if they're sharing that information, I'm gonna take it to heart. Yeah. You know, because obviously this is
they're familiar with
it. They patrol that particular area. You may want to have to utilize their case a different way. You know, nothing against the female, male side of things, but hey, we may have to put a guy on this case. We may have to, is there an appointment to get out of this neighborhood? Hey, we're not going to be able to sit direct on this. We're going to have to sit here, half a mile down the road. Yeah. We have to let the situation come to us because there's so much other stuff going on in this neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it, there's certain areas, depending on what part of Memphis you're in or any city, you know, you pull up and you're a foreign vehicle. Yeah. The assumption is that you're either trying to buy drugs, sell drugs, or do something to somebody that's doing both. Yeah. And so people is confronting you. But
that's not to take away from what you're saying, but that's why I talk about working with investigators that live in that area. Yeah. Right. If you travel with a guy from Nashville to Memphis, he doesn't know. Right. I'm traveling a guy from Nashville to Jackson, he doesn't know. You know, there's some parts of Jackson, the north of Jackson, Martin, all of that. A lot of drugs going on out there. You know, sitting out like a sore thumb. Yeah. So when that individual knows the area, it makes a big difference. Same thing with mobile surveillance. I worked a case many years ago. 2-man, actually, same guy I told you was doing the sheetrock. Mm-hmm. Me and that same investigator working a case. Following this guy, following the two of us. Tag teaming. So he's in front of me. I'm behind him. And we just so happen we're in my neighborhood. And the subject's driving, starting to slow down. And I can tell he's about to make a right. So I'm looking for a walkie-talkie on my phone so I can be like, don't turn. Of course, I couldn't get to the guy in time. By the time he turned, that claimant was sitting there, waiting on him. It was a dead end. It was a gas station. It was a dead end. That street went nowhere. All he did was bust you and was just sitting there. So when that investigator turned, he was right there. Like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you following? Yeah, and then the investigator, you were able to kind of veer off and go to the gas station. So he kind of played it off. So the guy waited 1 or 2 minutes, and then he came out. When he came out, he was mine. Right. You know what I'm saying? I was maybe 3 or 4 cars, back behind him. So I just kept going with him. And we were able to stay with him, but that other guy had to kind of fall back, so to speak. So I would be, in some situations, you may have, when you have 2 guys, you may have a guy that is tailing another guy's video. You might tail him to the Best Buy, say, yeah, man, he's at the Best Buy. He pulls in, he might get a little bit of video, let the other guy come in, set up somewhere. maybe out of sight, get all the other video, and then you have to keep tagging him until he gets back home. So, but that's the other part, in that regard. When you're doing the mobile surveillance, be it familiar. You follow somebody and they're like, why are they getting off here? But they're getting off here because they don't want to get caught in that traffic. As they get further down 55 or it's a bunch of potholes. They're like, I'm just going to get off on yours, so I'm going to take the streetway. And that's still going to lead me, to where I'm trying to get to.
Right.
And a lot of times with major cities, when you have, O'Hickory Boulevard. O'Hickory Boulevard runs completely around Nashville, but it's also a street that will lead you to the interstate. State of Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken, I think they're responsible for like Elvis Presley Boulevard, Shell, because a lot of those roads they turn into highways. And that's with knowing the area is always a good thing. So in summary, we covered investigative history of investigators, case preparation. No, case preparation is coming up. I'm sorry. Surveillance techniques, mobile surveillance, a few tips there. And the importance, of course, as we said before, with the tools, having the right tools to obtain quality video for the client.